The stars outside the grand chamber window shimmered silently, now watching over the ruins of what was once a proud and powerful galaxy. The Galactic Union of Orin had once stretched across hundreds of star systems. Now, after a century of brutal war, only a few scattered planets remained. Most species had lost more than just territory. They had lost the ability to reproduce. Inside the shining silver dome of the Royal Council, voices murmured across the hall.
Elders
From many different alien races sat around a wide circular table. Some floated, others stood, some blinked multiple eyes, while a few communicated through colors or sound pulses. But they all shared one thing: fear. Their civilizations were dying, not from war anymore, but from slow extinction. At the center of the chamber stood a tall figure in dark green armor, Captain Elias Grant, the last known human. His short dark hair, focused eyes, and calm posture made him look like a soldier even now, though he carried no weapon. He had been brought here from a long-forgotten Earth stronghold, hidden deep in a corner of the galaxy. Most aliens thought humans were extinct, till now. One of the council leaders, Speaker Zahn, rose. He belonged to the Ralica, wise, bird-like. Species with golden feathers and a voice like wind. Captain Elias Grant, Speaker Zayshawn said. After careful testing and genetic analysis, it has been confirmed that your species is biologically compatible with over 80% of the known races. In short, your DNA is a key to restoring life. Elias raised an eyebrow. What exactly are you asking me to do? Another council member, Lady Valari of the crystal-skinned Xerath, stepped forward. You have been chosen to become part of our repopulation duty. It is a position of honor, Captain. Out. You will work with selected partners across the Union to ensure the survival of our worlds. Elias took a step back. You mean you want me to rebuild your species? Just like that? I'm not a scientist. I'm not even sure I want this job. It is not just about biology, Lady Valari explained. It is about hope, leadership. Humanity once stood strong. And now, in this dark age, you are a light we cannot afford to lose. The chamber grew silent. Then Speaker Zayon raised a hand. Let it be put to vote. Members of the council, do you support the assignment of Captain Elias Grant to the position of official repopulation delegate of the Union? One by one, lights lit up around the table. Green for yes. Every single member voted. Unanimous. Elias let out a slow breath. So, you're all serious. You are no longer just a soldier, Captain, said Zihan. Future. Elias was taken to a private chamber afterward, and the walls shimmered with moving stars, but he didn't look at them. He sat down, staring at his hands. He didn't ask for this. He didn't expect it. He was raised by AI caregivers in an abandoned military base on Earth. He grew up reading old books, watching training videos, and teaching himself how to survive. He had never even spoken to another living human, and now aliens expected him to carry the future of a galaxy on his shoulders. A soft chime rang. The door opened, and a calm voice spoke. You seem lost in thought. Elias turned. A tall, graceful alien woman entered. She had silver blue skin that shimmered softly, and violet eyes filled with intelligence. She was wearing a long robe, covered in ancient symbols. I'm Laria Vell, head geneticist of the Ivanari species, she said. I've been studying human DNA for years. Never thought I'd meet one alive. Elias nodded. Well, surprise, she smiled kindly. You're not just compatible, you're extraordinary. Human genes adapt, repair, and grow faster than almost anything we've seen. Your kind may hold the secret to restoring natural life to this galaxy. Elias looked at her carefully. What if I say no? She sat down across from him. We try something else, but we don't have much time left. Our youngest generation is aging. Some species haven't seen a child born in decades. Elias looked away. He wasn't heartless. In fact, that was the problem. He couldn't just walk away. But he didn't want to be used either. I won't be anyone's tool, he said firmly. Not the council's. Not yours. Laria nodded. Then don't be. Write your own terms. Build your own path. But at least walk with us. Don't leave us in silence. There was another silence, this one heavier. Then Elias stood up. All right, he said, I'll listen. But this time humanity leads. Laria smiled again. Then maybe this galaxy has a future after all. Outside the chamber, the stars continued to shine. But for the first time in 100 years, there was hope. Behind those lights, and it began with one human. Elias Grant stood at the edge of the sky deck, looking out at the shining curve of the planet Scifi Prime. Below him, golden forests stretched like rivers of light across the land. Birds with wings like sails glided through the air. It was beautiful, peaceful, but inside his heart, there was only pressure. A day had passed since the Royal Council had voted to make him the official repopulation delegate of the Union. Since then, he had been shown charts, lists, biology, data, cultural documents, and plans for alliances. Each one showed his importance. Every species that could no longer continue on its own wanted a chance to connect with human DNA to survive. But Elias didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man placed in a trap. Behind him, footsteps approached. He didn't need to turn around to know it was Laria Vell, the Avinary scientist. She had become his guide on Scifi Prime, and the only one who seemed to understand that he needed time. You haven't answered the council, she said gently. They're waiting. Elias crossed his arms. They gave me a title and expect me to play along, but I'm not a machine. I'm not a service. I'm a person. I know, she replied. And that's why I came. Need to see. Something. She handed him a data tablet. Elias tapped the screen. A series of short recordings began to play. They were messages. Not from the council, but from everyday people across the Union. A farmer from the ice world Taraxis. A young artist from the floating cities of Verilon. A medic from the scorched lands of Velka-4. Each message was simple. Please help us. Our kind is fading. We don't want our children to be the last. Even if it's not today, maybe your blood can give us a tomorrow. Elias watched in silence. His fingers tightened on the tablet. I never asked for this, he said quietly. No one does, Laria said. Sometimes it finds us anyway. Elias sighed. So what exactly do they want me to do? Visit every world and start a genetic program? Shake hands? Give blood samples? Build families? It's all too much. You don't have to do everything, Laria said. But we need to start somewhere. The Union will follow your lead if you choose to lead. Elias looked at her. On my terms, she nodded. Of course. That night Elias sat alone in his quarters. He turned on an old Earth music recording, something slow and thoughtful. It reminded him of the quiet halls of Fortress Earth, where he once trained in silence, never imagining he'd be the last of his kind. He picked up a blank datapad. Then he began to write. The Human Directive Charter. Draft 1. Humanity is not property. I will not be used without choice or voice. Cooperation, not control. No one species may claim exclusive access to human DNA. Respect above all. Every interaction must be based on mutual understanding and cultural exchange. Science must be clear. No hidden research. No secret plans. I will be part of all decisions. No forced legacy. Every future must be chosen, not commanded, by morning. Elias had finished his draft. He sent it to the Royal Council. The next day the council gathered again. Elias stood in front of them not as a servant, but as an equal. I will agree to this mission, he announced, but only by these terms. He uploaded the Human Directive Charter to the central table. The room fell into quiet discussion. As council members read the points one by one, some frowned. Others nodded slowly. A few looked impressed. Speaker Eason finally spoke. You ask for autonomy, cooperation, and transparency. These are bold demands, Captain. Elias didn't blink. They're fair. Lady Valeri stood. I agree. These terms are built on mutual respect. The Union needs this kind of honesty. If we are to heal, After a short vote, the council approved the charter. Once again, unanimously. You may now choose your first mission, Captain Elias. Zahn said. Elias turned toward the large star map behind them. I want to go to the planet Galrix, Ivanari. They're strong in science and peace. It's a good place to begin. Laria smiled. I can arrange everything. Elias nodded. Then let's get started. He still felt the weight of his new title, but he also felt something else control. He wasn't just being sent on a duty anymore. He was building a future on his terms, and for the first time in a long time, he believed in that future. The planet Galrix hung in space like a glowing gem. Its twin suns reflected off silver clouds and sapphire blue oceans. Towering forests and crystal valleys stretched across the surface. It was a place of deep knowledge, calm traditions, and one of the last peaceful worlds in the galaxy. Elias Grant stepped off the landing ramp of the Union vessel, his boots pressing into the soft, warm ground of Galrix for the first time. A small group of Ivanari citizens waited to greet him, standing with respectful silence. Each one had smooth, silver-blue skin, like Laria Vel, and eyes filled with curiosity. Elias wore a dark uniform, not a military one, but one he designed himself. Simple, strong, neutral, not a soldier, not a ruler. Just a representative of humanity. Laria stepped beside him, her voice calm. These are the scientists and leaders of the Galrix Union District. They've prepared a facility for your work. And a home. I don't need a home, Elias said softly. You will, Laria replied with a small smile. You're not just passing through anymore. The group led him through open paths, surrounded by singing plants and soft light towers. Galrix didn't believe in buildings with walls. Everything was shaped with nature. Science and peace flowed together like wind and water. When Elias reached the research center, he was greeted by a quiet and graceful Ivanari named Tolan Vek, one of the top biohistorians. We have studied your species from the few records left, Tolan said with a gentle bow. But now, we will study alongside you, not as test subjects, as partners. Elias liked that. It was exactly the kind of approach he demanded in his charter. For the next few weeks, Elias worked with the scientists of Galrix. He gave them samples of his blood, explained what little he knew about Earth's genetic history, and answered endless questions. They didn't treat him like an experiment, they treated him like a teacher. But as time passed, the weight of his role grew heavier. He wasn't just giving information, he was giving possibility, hope for life, hope for continuation. The result they discovered brought more attention. Soon, messages started arriving from across the galaxy. Please visit our world next. Our people need your help. Can you speak at our university? Will you lead our repopulation project? Elias read them all, but answered none. One evening, while walking near the singing river of Galrix, Elias sat alone. He looked up at the stars and sighed deeply. I came here to help, he whispered to himself, not to become a symbol. Approached quietly and sat beside him. You're not just a symbol, she said gently, but symbols give people something to believe in, especially when everything else has been lost. I didn't grow up with people, Elias said. Didn't have family? I didn't even know what it meant to be human, really. Now I'm supposed to guide others into building life again. How can I do that? Laria looked at him with kind eyes. Because you understand pain, because you understand choice, because even when you were alone, you didn't give up. He looked down at the grass under his hand. He still feels like too much. She placed a hand on his shoulder. Then don't carry it alone. The next day, Elias made a decision. He asked the Galrix Council to open the repopulation directive to others, not just himself. He wanted a team. Not copies of him, but volunteers from different species. Doctors, diplomats, thinkers, builders. Those willing to help build bridges between cultures. Not just bloodlines. It won't just be about DNA, he told the council. It'll be about connection, lasting connection. The council agreed. Within days, the Unified Repopulation Coalition was born. Its goal was simple: to bring life back to the galaxy through unity, not control. Each species could offer their unique strengths. Each community could learn from one another. And Elias would serve as the lead guide, not the only hope. News spread fast. Some planets cheered. Others watched with caution. But for the first time in decades, entire worlds began to work together again. Small science stations were reactivated. Ancient treaties were reread. Younglings on distant moons studied history not for war, but for rebuilding. And Elias finally smiled again. Because now, he wasn't just a piece in someone else's plan. He was helping write a new one with others, not for them. The Unified Repopulation Coalition was growing fast. Across the galaxy, Ilias's message was spreading. His plan, built on respect, choice, and cooperation, was bringing new hope to dying worlds. Galrix became the central hub, where scientists, scholars, and volunteers from many species worked side by side. Elias should have felt proud, but trouble was coming. It began with whispers, strange messages. Started appearing in coalition databases, short phrases like, "Human corruption must not spread. The bloodline must remain pure. Stop the merging. Save the old way." At first, Elias ignored them. Angry voices always appeared when something changed. But the messages didn't stop. They grew louder and darker. One night, a laboratory on Galrix was attacked. No one was hurt, but valuable samples and data were destroyed. A message was left behind, written in bold letters: "End the hybrid project, or face the consequences." Lara and the other leaders were shaken. The lab had been under tight protection. Broken knew how to bypass the systems. Elias called an emergency meeting. Members of the coalition gathered in a large open-air hall under the moonlight of Galrix. This was not just a warning, Elias said, his voice steady. This was a message from someone who sees our unity as a threat. Who would want to stop life from continuing? Asked a scientist from the desert world of Meran. Talonvek stepped forward. "There's a group, ... a secret one. We've heard rumors for years. They call themselves the Purity Accord. They believe only original species should survive. No mixing, no human help." Elias narrowed his eyes. "So they would rather let the galaxy die than accept change?" Laria nodded. "To them, your presence is unnatural. A challenge to their old beliefs." Elias looked around the room. "Then we have a choice. Be afraid or stand stronger." The council voted that night to continue the mission. Security was increased. All travel between coalition planets would now include patrol escorts. But no one wanted fear to stop their progress. Still, Elias knew this wasn't over. A week later, a star cruiser carrying Elias and several delegates to a peace summit on Velker 4 was attacked mid-flight. A plasma mine exploded near the ship's side, damaging one engine. The pilot managed to land on a small moon nearby. But several were injured, including Laria. Elias rushed to her side in the medical bay. She lay on a scanner table, her shoulder badly burned. "You shouldn't have been there," Elias said softly, his jaw tight. Laria winced through the pain. "And miss your speech? Never?" "I'm not giving speeches anymore," Elias said, standing up. "I'm taking action." The response to the attack changed everything. Elias no longer stayed in safe labs or peaceful halls. Traveled directly to coalition member worlds, meeting with their people, speaking openly about the threat of division. His words were clear. "We must not let fear of change stop life from growing. Let the Purity Accord hide in the shadows." In the light, under Elias's guidance, The coalition launched Project Harmony, a shared network connecting science stations, medical facilities, and genetic archives across the galaxy. No one planet would hold power alone. No one person could be the single point of failure. But Elias also did something unexpected. He offered amnesty in a broadcast to all Union systems. He said, "To those in the Purity Accord who feel afraid, understand. Change is hard, but it is not too late to join us. We will not fight hatred with hatred, we will answer it with truth." Some called him too soft, but others, many in fact, responded. Small groups broke away from the Purity Accord. Former members turned over data, revealed names, and helped locate secret hideouts. One of those hideouts was near the edge of the Drecker Void, a place of shattered stars and ancient ruins. Elias led a small peace team there hoping to speak, not fight. But what they found was worse than they imagined. A secret base with weapons, stolen technology, and plans to destroy the Coalition's main archive station, the very heart of Project Harmony. Time was running out. Elias stood before the Coalition once more. This time not as a diplomat, but as a commander. "I've avoided war all my life," he said. "But we won't survive if we let hatred destroy what we've built. Lead the mission to stop this, not as a soldier of Earth, but as a protector of all." Toward the front, Linesel joined a group of mixed-species defenders, called themselves the Keepers, and their mission was clear: protect the future. The final operation would begin in the next part of the story, but before leaving, Elias visited Laria, now healed and recovering. "You're doing more than anyone ever expected," she told him. Elias smiled. "I just want this galaxy to remember what unity feels like." And with that, he stepped into the transport ship. The stars waited. So did the enemy. But Elias was ready, because he wasn't just the last human anymore. He was the first of something new. The stars above the Drecker Void were cold and quiet. It was a region filled with ancient debris, shattered moons, and lost history. But now, it held something far more dangerous: the main hidden base of the Purity Accord. Captain Elias Grant stood inside the command ship Unity's Edge, looking at a glowing map of the region. Around him stood leaders from several species: scientists, warriors, diplomats. They were not trained soldiers. They were defenders of hope. "This is not a war," Elias said calmly. "It's a rescue mission for the future. We're not here to destroy. We are here to protect." The plan was simple. A small team would enter the Accord base quietly and disable the bomb set to destroy Archive Station Helios, the main hub of the Coalition's genetic records. At the same time, another group would intercept transmissions to stop the spread of false data. Elias chose to lead the first team himself. The shuttle dropped into silence as it approached the base. No lights, no welcome, just metal towers built into the side of a dead asteroid. Beside him sat Kieran Soul, a tech expert from the Marin species. He adjusted his visor nervously. "You really believe they'll listen if we speak to them?" Elias looked ahead. "I believe some of them will. That's enough." The shuttle landed without alert. The door hissed open. The team stepped into the dark hallway of the Accord base.
Ow.
Lights flickered above. The air smelled like old iron dot. As they moved deeper, they found no guards, only silence, until a voice echoed through the hall. "Turn back, human. This place is not for you." Elias raised his head. "I came to stop a mistake, not start a fight. Let me speak." From the shadows, a figure stepped forward. He was tall and wore a metal suit marked with old royal symbols. His name was Commander Verax, leader of the Purity. "Accord, you should not be here," Verax said, his tone cold. "You do not belong. You are a symbol of the end." Elias didn't flinch. "I'm a symbol of new beginnings." Verax looked at the others, different species from across the Union, and what are they? Weaklings who follow a dying world. "We protect what was pure." Kieran stepped forward. "You're protecting emptiness. No future can grow from that." Verax's eyes narrowed. "You dare lecture me?" Elias stepped between them. "We don't need to fight. Shut down the weapon. Let's talk. This doesn't have to end badly." Verax raised a hand. and alarms exploded through the halls. Security drones dropped from the ceiling. Lights turned red. Loud voice boomed. Intruders. Detected. Lockdown initiated. Elias grabbed his communicator. Team Bravo, go for the signal tower. We'll handle the core room. The team ran through twisting halls, dodging blasts from drone weapons. Kieran hacked a control panel and opened a side door just in time. They reached the power room, only to find the bomb already armed. Time. 14 minutes. Elias knelt beside the control device. This is beyond basic tech, Kieran. Kieran's hands flew over the console. It's using old fusion code. I need time. Take it, Elias said. I'll hold the line. Doors burst open, and drone units flooded in. Elias moved fast, using a mix of human combat training and alien tech. He disabled drones with shock pulses and tossed energy. Dampeners into their circuits, but they kept coming. Suddenly a pulse wave hit Elias and knocked him back. Sparks flew. His armor smoke Commander Varix entered the room. Still fighting for your dream, human? Varix growled. Elias stood slowly. No, our dream. You're alone, Varix snapped. Elias looked around at Kieran and the others still working, still fighting, still helping. No, he said. Not anymore. Varix charged, energy blade raised. Elias dodged, blocked with his forearm, and grabbed a pipe from the wall. He fought with quick moves. Not perfect, but strong. Precise. You don't understand, Varix shouted. Without purity, identity dies. And without unity, Elias replied, blocking another strike, life dies. They fought hard and fast. Finally, Elias landed a strike to Varix's chest, sending him crashing to the floor. Behind him, Kieran shouted, Done. Bomb defused. The room went silent except for the fading alarms. Elias looked down at Varix, breathing heavily. It's over. I tried to stop change with fear. But life always finds a way forward. Varix said nothing. He just stared at. The ceiling defeated victory and choice back. On Galrix, the coalition celebrated. The archive was safe. The Accord base was taken. And Elias Wants, a quiet survivor from a forgotten world, was now a hero of peace. But he didn't smile for the cameras, didn't give long speeches. Instead, he called for something simple, a council not of rulers, but of builders. Hey people, who would design the next steps of the coalition together, fairly? And he gave Varix and his followers a choice. Join the rebuilding or remain alone in isolation. Some refused. But many, perhaps more than expected, accepted the offer. A leader reborn later that night. Elias stood with Laria on the roof of the Science Center. She had recovered and now wore a robe of soft silver, a sign of peace. You were right, Elias said quietly. Some would listen, even the ones I thought never would. Laria smiled, because you didn't try to defeat them. You tried to reach them. I'm no legend, Elias said. I'm just ... human. Exactly, she said. Why you matter? The stars above sparkled like never before, and far across the galaxy. Hope rose again, not because of one man, but because one man believed it should belong to everyone. Years had passed since Elias Grant first stood before the Royal Council, a lone human in a galaxy desperate for hope. Now, the stars of the Galactic Union shone brighter, not just from suns, but from the light of new life, the unified repopulation. Coalition had become more than a project. It was a living network of worlds, species, and cultures growing stronger together. Hybrid colonies had blossomed on several planets, blending the best of each heritage. Schools taught history not to fuel old grudges, but to build better futures. And new treaties celebrated cooperation, not conquest. Elias stood on the balcony of the Central Coalition Hall on Galrix, looking down at the bustling city below. Children of many species played and laughed, their voices weaving a melody of unity. The silver towers of the research centers sparkled in the sun, and the gardens bloomed with strange, beautiful plants from countless worlds. Beside him, Lariavel smiled softly. You changed everything. Elias shook his head. No, we all did. She nodded. Still, it started with one man who refused to give up. He looked away for a moment, remembering the long road. The council's vote, the early doubts. Threats, the battles, the moments of loneliness. I never wanted to be a symbol, he said quietly. Symbols aren't born. They're made by the choices we make, Laria said. And you chose to lead. Training the future inside the hall, Elias moved toward the Council of Builders' chamber, where young leaders from across the galaxy were gathered. He had become more than a delegate. He was now a mentor, a teacher, guide. He watched his students practice diplomacy, science, and leadership. They learned how to combine technology with empathy, genetics with ethics. This was the future, the next generation, who would carry the coalition's legacy forward. One of the students approached. A young girl with dark eyes and bright curiosity. Sir Elias, she said, how did you keep going when things seemed impossible? Elias smiled gently. So I believed that life was worth fighting for. And because I never forgot that no one succeeds alone. The girl nodded, inspired. I want to help all species just like you. Good, Elias said. The galaxy needs more like you. Duh. The first father outside. A crowd gathered to celebrate the coalition's anniversary. There was music from many instruments, alien and human alike. And fireworks that painted the sky in brilliant colors. Elias was asked to speak. When he stepped forward, the crowd fell silent. He looked at all the faces, the young, the old, the mixed, the new. Years ago, Elias began, I was called here to be a tool, to serve a plan I didn't understand. But I chose a different path. I chose to lead with respect and hope. The crowd cheered softly. Today we don't just survive. We thrive, not because of one species, but because of many. Together, we are stronger. Someone shouted from the crowd, You're the first father of a new age. Elias chuckled, shaking his head. No, we all are. A legacy of unity later. That night, Elias walked alone beneath the stars, thinking of Earth, his home planet long lost. He thought of the soldiers who trained him, the memories of a past life, and the unknown future ahead. A soft voice broke the silence. Laria joined him, carrying a small plant growing in her hand. This is a seed from Earth, she said. Recovered it from old archives, a symbol of new life. Elias took the seed carefully. Maybe one day, we can bring Earth back, maybe, Laria said with hope. Together they planted the seed in the garden below, a quiet promise that life always finds a way. The future begins. The galaxy was no longer a place of fear and war. It was a place of growth, learning, and unity. Elias Grant, once a reluctant soldier from a forgotten world, had become the symbol of a new beginning, a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope can shine brightest. As the twin suns set on Galrix, Elias stood tall, ready to face whatever came next, because this was just the beginning. Years had passed since Elias Grant first stood before the Royal Council, a lone human in a galaxy, desperate for hope. Now the stars of the Galactic Union shone brighter not just from suns, but from the light of new life. The Unified Repopulation Coalition had become more than a project. It was a living network of worlds, species, and cultures growing stronger together. Hybrid colonies had blossomed on several planets, blending the best of each heritage. Schools taught history not to fuel old grudges, but to build better futures. And new treaties celebrated cooperation, not conquest. Elias stood on the balcony of the Central Coalition Hall on Galrix, looking down at the bustling city below. Children of many species played and laughed, their voices weaving a melody of unity. The silver towers of the research centers sparkled in the sun, and the gardens bloomed with strange, beautiful plants from countless worlds. Beside him, Lariavel smiled softly. You changed everything. Elias shook his head. No, we all did. She nodded. Still, It started with one man who refused to give up. He looked away for a moment, remembering the long road. The council's vote, the early doubts. Threats, the battles, the moments of loneliness. "I never wanted to be a symbol," he said quietly. "Symbols aren't born. They're made by the choices we make," Laria said. "And you chose to lead." Training the future inside the hall, Elias moved toward the Council of Builders' chamber, where young leaders from across the galaxy were gathered. He had become more than a delegate. He was now a mentor, a teacher, guide. He watched his students practice diplomacy, science, and leadership. They learned how to combine technology with empathy, genetics with ethics. This was the future, the next generation, who would carry the coalition's legacy forward. One of the students approached, a young girl with dark eyes and bright curiosity. "Sir Elias," she said, "how did you keep going when things seemed impossible?" Elias smiled gently. "So I believed that life was worth fighting for. And because I never forgot that no one succeeds alone." The girl nodded, inspired. "I want to help all species just like you." "Good," Elias said. "The galaxy needs more like you." Duh. The first father outside. A crowd gathered to celebrate the coalition's anniversary. There was music from many instruments, alien and human alike. And fireworks that painted the sky in brilliant colors. Elias was asked to speak. When he stepped forward, the crowd fell silent. He looked at all the faces, the young, the old, the mixed, the new. "Years ago," Elias began, "I was called here to be a tool, to serve a plan I didn't understand. But I chose a different path. I chose to lead with respect and hope." The crowd cheered softly. "Today we don't just survive. We thrive, not because of one species, but because of many. Together, we are stronger." Someone shouted from the crowd, "You're the first father of a new age." Elias chuckled, shaking his head. "No, we all are." A legacy of unity later. That night, Elias walked alone beneath the stars, thinking of Earth, his home planet long lost. He thought of the soldiers who trained him, the memories of a past life, and the unknown future ahead. A soft voice broke the silence. Laria joined him, carrying a small plant growing in her hand. "This is a seed from Earth," she said. "Recovered it from old archives, a symbol of new life." Elias took the seed carefully. "Maybe one day, we can bring Earth back," Laria said with hope. Together they planted the seed in the garden below, a quiet promise that life always finds a way. The future begins. The galaxy was no longer a place of fear and war. It was a place of growth, learning, and unity. Elias Grant, once a reluctant soldier from a forgotten world, had become the symbol of a new beginning, a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope can shine brightest, as the twin suns set on. Galrix Elias stood tall, ready to face whatever came next, because this was just the beginning.